Hi everyone, you're listening to When They Forget, an Alzheimer's Stories podcast. We're really excited that you're listening today, and we've got a great show for you. We have some stories to share with you from some of our listeners, and later in the show, we're going to share some of our own. If you have an Alzheimer's or dementia story to share, we'd love to hear it. You can email us at whentheyforgetpodcast@gmail.com, or you can call and leave us a voicemail at 850-254-9595. You have about 4 minutes to record, so if you get interrupted, just call back and keep going. Okay, let's get into the show today.
Hi, sister.
Hey, sister.
How are you?
I'm good. I am good. How are you?
I'm good.
Our Mother's Day visit was terrible. Mom, they had done her hair and they put her in a dress and she looked beautiful. Her hair looked wonderful and the dress was pretty, but she was frustrated with the wait. I think it was also very hot and she must have been very cold inside because they had the AC on. And when we sat near the window and they lifted the window for her, the cold air blowing out was really cold. Also, I called you on FaceTime, and we tried to do that, and with the street noise and the window and a lot of other things, she couldn't hear you, and you couldn't hear her, and the FaceTime didn't work, and she was just in such a lousy mood.
She was very, what I got just in the little bit of time that I was on FaceTime with her, was she was very frustrated that we weren't there, that we weren't inside. She seemed very angry. Like, the way that I took it was I got all dressed up for this, to sit at a window and have people talk to me through a window in masks and I can't hear anything. She was in just a wretched mood.
Yeah, and I did wear a mask because with the window open, I wanted to get close enough to hold the phone for you for FaceTime. And I wanted to also get in there and try to take a picture. And I knew with the window open, I would be too close to her. So then I was wearing the mask and she was very frustrated. She was very frustrated by all of it. And it was just an all-around lousy visit. It ended bad. And I cried a little on the way home. And then it was just so rotten for you that you brought your family and came over to visit a few days later.
Yeah, I was actually crying on the call.
Oh,
I mean, I know you couldn't see that, but I was crying on the FaceTime call because I was just like, I was so upset. I was already having a pretty horrible Mother's Day only because I was not there.
Yeah.
And I kind of, last year when I made the choice not to come out for Mother's Day, and I can't remember why, but we decided that I wouldn't go out there for Mother's Day. And at that point, I thought, what if this is her last Mother's Day?
Mm-hmm.
And then this Mother's Day, because 2020 sucks, is I couldn't go and see her for Mother's Day. And so I was already upset. And then that call was just very sad for me. Yeah. And it was very hard. And so that night, I actually was talking to Tom and his mom, because his mom we called her for Mother's Day, and I told them what had happened, and Tom said, we gotta go. We gotta go over there, even if you just sit and see her through the window, you need to go, because she really didn't know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're being very kind, but she also did flash us.
Yeah.
With the dress.
Yep.
Which was not fantastic, because the angle we were at, the window was high, so you got her kneecaps.
Yep.
And she was flashing us.
Yeah.
So we went out. We were very careful the whole time we were there. With the pandemic. We only saw you and stayed in the hotel. We ate takeout. We wore masks whenever we went out into public. But the sole purpose was, I mean, this is really sad. It was to go and stand at the window so she could actually see us.
Yeah.
And I could see her.
Yeah.
I mean, how I felt like, I was visiting my mom in maximum security prison through a window. She was talking on a phone and I was talking on a phone. And I could only see her through the glass.
Yeah. They switched the location from the window that opens to a side window that doesn't open. So,
and it was raining.
Yeah.
Oh, it was pouring on us. And the beautiful thing is she was in a fantastic mood.
Yeah.
She was happy to see us. She was happy to see Tommy. I don't believe she actually really knew who Tommy was, but she knew she loved him.
Yeah.
And she knew that he was important and she had affection for him, but I'm not sure she actually knew who he was. But be that as it may, she was in a really good mood. And what was fantastic, and this is going to go back to the last episode, she said, "C'est la shit."
She did.
That just warmed my heart.
Yeah.
When I heard her say that, because that's a nugget that's sitting in the back of her brain that has not been eaten by the Alzheimer's yet.
Yeah.
C'est la shit.
C'est la shits. Yeah, and we looked right at each other and cracked up laughing. It was awesome. It was really awesome.
It was. And I was happy to see her. Got to see her 3 days in a row, and then we turned around and we came home, and I'm headed back soon because I just, even if it is only to stand at that window through glass and talk to her on the phone, I need to see her more.
Yeah. It was better. It was better than the FaceTime for sure.
Absolutely.
And you have just been talking to her on FaceTime for a couple months. Either whether it's me that calls or the lady who, the executive director at Mom's Place, who uses her own personal cell phone to call on FaceTime.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was very happy to be able to see her, and I was happy to see you. I mean, this whole thing has been quite a crisis.
Yeah.
In many different ways, but that's probably, for me personally, that has affected me the most.
Yeah.
I know there's many other people out there with a whole bunch of other things that are affecting them, but for me, it's not being able to see my mother in the last months or, year of her life.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling somebody today, I said she is a stubborn woman. I said she could be here for 10 more years.
Yes. Stubbornly clinging to life.
Yes. Yeah, that's a funny story.
That is perfect. That is the perfect way to describe her. I'm actually going to use that the next time somebody says, "How's your mom?" I'm going to say, stubbornly clinging to life.
Yep. Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one. We're going to switch gears a little right here and share some listener stories.
This story comes to us from Instagram. Hi, my name is Marcia, and I was a caregiver to my mother until she passed away last month. We walked the dementia journey together for 7 years. I thought she would be with me forever, but I have so many good memories of nights spent with her holding hands while she watched our regular arts or any dancing and singing TV program. She had lost her mobility and her ability to talk, but we never stopped communicating. She was my best friend, and I miss her dearly. Please, please spend as much time as possible with your mom. That's the only thing that will hold you together at the end. All moms are precious, but those living with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia are super vulnerable and do need their children to protect them and ease their fears. Quarantine greetings to both of you and your sweet mom. Thank you, Marcia, and I just wanted to say we are very sorry for your loss, and your story really touched us both. We also reach our mother through music and arts and singing. When we were growing up, every morning when we were having breakfast, we would always have breakfast together as a family, and she would play records. John Denver, Anne Murray, Roger Whittaker. And so now when we see her and she's in that place where she's lost and she can't communicate with us, that's one way to reach her, is we will start singing, John Denver's Country Roads Take Me Home, or one of her other favorite songs. And that music touches something deep inside her memory and her brain and brings her back to us. I'm not saying it will always work, but right now I'm so glad that is one way we can still reach her. So we appreciate your story and sharing it with us. And again, we're very sorry for the loss of your mother.
When Debbie and I first started this podcast, we reached out to a lot of friends and people we know in the Alzheimer's community. This next story comes from one of those people.
15 years ago, I never could have imagined that I'd be starting a caregiving journey with my late mother, Sheila. Hi, I'm Bill Cohen. Sheila Cohen Springer was a master printmaker, specializing in the intaglio technique, was an early Mac adopter and user in her 60s, was a beloved wife, sister, aunt, and my mother. She was born in the Bronx, New York, and was educated, married, and raised a family, and lived for 40 years in West Hartford, Connecticut. Sheila was a widely recognized artist and respected teacher, and was the owner and operator of the Imprimery Graphics Workshop in Biloxi, Mississippi, where she lived almost 30 years. Now, if you told me the following scenario 15 years ago, I'd have told you it was extremely improbable. My mother, in her early 70s, would show signs of dementia, including paranoia and confusion, while caring herself for my late stepfather. She'd lose her home in Hurricane Katrina's devastating storm surge and be traumatized. She'd have her health and ability to create beautiful art stolen by Alzheimer's. She'd be with other East Coast family for about 2 years. While I held a full-time government job, I made several cross-country trips. I became her caregiver, durable power of attorney, trustee, and health representative, not just her elder son. I'd start attending a dementia caregiver support group, which I facilitate today. I'd start making plans to move her into a Raleigh Hills care community. I'd move her here to Oregon, where she was in assisted living for a year, then memory care for 4 years. After her passing in 2013, at age 83, I became a support group leader, a volunteer to raise funds and awareness, and an advocate for research dollars, all in my mother's honor and memory. Finally, I retired from a 25-year public sector job to an encore career as a caregiving support consultant, helping families like yours. As I like to say, I turned my personal loss into my passion. Unbelievable, right? But that's exactly what happened. What may sound like fiction to you was my reality. Since then, I've devoted my life to helping and supporting family caregivers on their own challenging journey with their loved ones living with dementia, working diligently to ease others' pain, and helping to find a cure. I provide advice, guidance, resources, and referrals to help them save time and money, and to reduce their stress. Most of you probably feel like I did when the first signs or diagnosis became apparent. I became exhausted and overwhelmed, and I felt alone. I had no idea what resources were available, who to talk to, or how long the disease would take. I understand how you feel. Thank you for listening. Again, my name is Bill Cohen.
I reached out to Bill because he spends his time working now as a caregiving support consultant. He has such a wide network of people he helps, and he facilitates support groups that right now are all online. He has a Facebook group that he runs where he brings people together who need to lean on each other, and he helps families navigate caregiving, especially when it can feel overwhelming. I knew he would have stories of his mother and his experiences to share. So thanks, Bill. I've put the link to his website and his Facebook group in the show notes. And in this current time of social distancing, no matter where you are in the world, you can attend one of Bill's online support groups. This last story comes from Leslie via email. My mother Ursula is 78 and has Alzheimer's disease. She is in the late middle stages of the disease and lives with me because there is no other option. Several years ago, her behaviors became too difficult for my father to handle, so we moved her to a locked memory care facility. After 6 months, they kicked her out for aggressive and violent behaviors that endangered both their staff and other residents. So now she lives with me, and we have such adventures together. Mom was born in Frankfurt, Germany during World War II. Her young life in Germany had a lot of joy and hardship. They were desperately poor, and the family often didn't have enough food to eat. Mom remembers stealing milk because she so badly wanted to drink some milk. She and her family moved to California when she was 13 years old, and she has been here ever since. But she still feels herself very German. These days, her only wish and goal in life is to go home to her mother, dead 30 years, in Germany. My grandmother likely had Alzheimer's also. In the months before she died of a heart attack, we discussed the possibility and had read books about Alzheimer's. Becoming like her mother, forgetful and unable to function, was my mother's greatest fear. This fear also led my parents to prepare for this possibility, and the most important thing they did was to purchase a long-term care policy. This policy now pays for my mother's care so I can continue to work. I so appreciate their preparedness and forethought. So when the first symptoms of Alzheimer's started in her early 60s, my mother recognized them immediately. She knew there was something wrong with her brain and told us about it. But we didn't much listen because the things she told us about seemed so vague and unimportant. We thought she was just worrying. I remember clearly the first time I realized something was wrong in 2008. We were on a family trip to Yosemite, a place Mom loves and visited annually. Mom could not get oriented and was constantly directionally confused. At this point, she also admitted to having a difficult time navigating while driving around the neighborhood she had lived in for 40 years. My heart sank, and I knew the future. Mom has none of the typical things you think about for an old person's disease. She has had the healthiest diet I know of, exercised daily, was not overweight, did a daily crossword puzzle to help her brain, and didn't have any bad health habits. But from her early 60s, she saw her future. In her later 60s, her primary care doctor did a very simple verbal Alzheimer's test and an MRI, and she passed with flying colors. No Alzheimer's. I'm so grateful for this because it gave my mom a few worry-free years, and she enjoyed her life and her grandchildren. By 2011, I was seriously worried again and thought that Alzheimer's was likely. My youngest daughter was in the 7th grade, and I started to drive to Mom and Dad's house once or twice a week to help them with basic household tasks that had become difficult. In 2012, we took a 3-week trip to Germany together because Mom was already not able to travel alone. We had a wonderful and memorable time together, and I treasure those memories. Slowly, the once-a-week trip to help Mom and Dad turned into 4, then 5, then 7 days a week. Things were very hard at their house. Mom cried a lot. She was losing ability to deal with mail, pay bills, cook, read, write letters, watch TV, etc. She would get into these circular series of questions, and it went on for hours at a time. My dad nearly lost his mind, and he became depressed. He had his own health issues and suffers from dementia. The only things she still enjoyed were gardening, walking, bike riding, swimming, and crocheting. So we did a lot of this together. She was 75 years old and going on 15-mile bike rides and 90-minute lap swims. Her physical health was amazing. 2017 was a hellish year. This is when the wandering, mood swings, and delusions started. This is also when I learned to laugh at her unbelievable behaviors. In an odd way, once I learned to laugh at the absurdity of what was happening, I grieved less. And Mom's constant crying also slowed down. She seemed far enough along in the disease that she no longer realized what she had lost. This was a blessing for her. I want to thank Leslie for sharing her story. She has written a lot of things out. Hopefully she'll record a story for us, because I would love for her to share more.
Thank you so much for listening. We want you to take a minute and ask you to rate and share our podcast. We're a brand new podcast, and your ratings and shares really help others find us on iTunes and other podcatchers. You can find us online at whentheyforget.com, and we're also out there on most socials at the handle When They Forget. If you have an Alzheimer's or dementia story to share, you can find out how on our website. Again, that's whentheyforget.com.
Okay, and the other things we were going to talk about is the first time that Mom forgot who we were.
Yeah.
And it's not a super uplifting topic, but at the same time, I think it's something that everyone who is dealing with family members with dementia and Alzheimer's has gone through.
Yeah.
Or needs to prepare themselves to go through.
Yeah.
Is the first time your loved one looks at you and has absolutely no recognition of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that if I could read books about it and look at other people's Instagram posts about it and prepare for it and imagine it and think this is what it's going to be like, that I would be ready for it. And what I realized is you're never ready. You can't. No. You can prepare in a way, and you can think like, okay, this is going to this is going to happen, and be realistic about it that it's going to happen. But you can't prepare for it. It still hits you, and then you just go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I thought the first time that Mom didn't remember who I was, I didn't think it was going to affect me as much as it did. I thought, oh, well, she's not going to know who I am, but I'm always going to know who she is. You know, I had that. I know there's a meme out there somewhere that I saw that, you know, even though she has forgotten me, I will always know her.
Yeah.
And so I kind of clung to that, and I thought, oh, you know, she may not know me, but I'm always going to know her. And then that first time she looked at me, and I just saw it.
Yeah.
There was nothing. There was no meme in the world that could take that feeling away.
Yeah.
So mine was Wednesday night dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And you fabulously started this Wednesday night dinner when Mom first went into assisted living. And every Wednesday it was something she could count on. You picked her up and took her to dinner, and Lucas would go, and Brian, and whoever was in town. I mean, yeah. I know that you always invited kids, me, everyone. And so it was one of my first visits where I actually got to go to a Wednesday night dinner, because Wednesday night's the middle of the week, and if I'm coming over from Idaho, you know, I usually come on the weekends. So this was actually one of my first Wednesday night dinners, and it might have been my first one. And she was still in the assisted living, and you had warned me about sundowning.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really understand what sundowning was at the time. I mean, I understood it realistically, but it's different when you see it. And sundowning is when towards the end of the day, they get exhausted, or their medication starts to wear off, or a combination of all of this. You know, they lose their lucidity.
Mm-hmm.
And we had done our Wednesday night dinner, and it was fun. We go to this place called Pietro's, where you can play games and eat pizza and wings and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of fun. I remember every Wednesday night dinner we did that, we laughed and laughed and laughed, always making jokes. And that night, I said, I'll take her back to the assisted living. You and Brian can go on home, and we will take her back to her assisted living place. And at that point, she knew who we were. She
mm-hmm.
knew who I was. Got in the car, and we pulled up outside her assisted living place. And she looked at me, and she got all confused, and she did not know where she was. And so I said, well, this is where you live. She said, no, I don't live here. And she was very childlike, almost like she was terrified Like I was taking her someplace she'd never been before.
Mm-hmm.
And I got her out of the car and walked her across the parking lot. We were going into the lobby, hoping that maybe when she got inside, she would recognize someone or surroundings or anything like that. And she didn't. And we got into the elevator, and that's when she looked at me and she said, who are you? I don't know who you are. And I don't really remember what I said. I'm sure I said something along the lines of, well, I'm Debbie, or, I'm Deb, your daughter. But nothing was registering. And so we were going up the elevator, and I said, this is where you live. I'm taking you home. And she goes, well, you seem like a really nice girl, so I guess I'll go with you, is what she said. And I'm like, well, at least I'm a nice girl.
Yeah.
And so she took my hand. I walked her down the hallway. She did not give me a hug because she did not know me well enough to allow me to hug her. But she allowed me to get her into her apartment. I settled her down in her chair, and I left. And I walked out and got into the car with Tom, and I cried all the way back to the hotel because it just hit me.
Yeah.
Your mom doesn't know who you are. I mean, she just looked at me. She was so confused, did not know me at all. And the next day, I was really worried to go back because I was scared that she still wouldn't know who I was. And so I wasn't sure I wanted to go back and see her. I was really kind of traumatized. I mean, I'd spent a good chunk of the evening crying and, trying to make sense of it all. Mm-hmm. And I went the next day, and she was back to normal lucidity. She knew who I was. She was making jokes. We, and had absolutely no recognition of the night before and what had happened. And so I thought, every day with Alzheimer's and mom, you never know, what's coming, what you're going to get. It's kind of like that Forrest Gump quote, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, it's cliche, but Alzheimer's is actually like a box of chocolates where, 30% of them are chocolates and, 30% of them are really good chocolates and, and then, whatever percentage is left, I'm not a math person.
Yeah.
Is okay. And depending on the stage that your loved one is in, it will be the ratio will change. I mean, we're getting to the point now where it's more 60 to 75% chocolates.
Yeah.
And so we do have those moments of, happiness and, the really great memory and feeling. But you just never know what you're going to get.
Yep.
So that is my story.
All right. So I was thinking about this for mine because a lot of the sundowning, and I had mentioned that to you when Brian and I would go over there in the evenings. She would, sit with us. She would talk to us. There was one evening I remember she walked us around. She showed us the building and she introduced us to people that live there. And then when we came back into her room, she walked in and she turned around and looked back at me. And it's like you said, she sort of shrunk into herself like she was a child. And she looked at me and she had no idea who I was at all. And I could just see it in her eyes. She was almost fearful. Who are these people that are in my apartment and why are they here? And Brian is very tall. So with the sunglasses on his hat and the hat, I'm sure he looked very tall to her. But she seemed fearful. And then I said, well, okay, Mom, we're getting ready to go. And I leaned in to give her a hug and she backed away. And that is one. And then the one that really got me the most, and this was just a little bit after that, Mom had a dear friend at the assisted living. And they spent a lot of time together. And this lady cared so much for Mom when she would sundown or when she would wake up in the morning. Because there was times towards the end when she was in assisted living, she would wake up and have no idea who she was or where she was or what was going on. And I think we had probably talked about moving her at that point, and so I knew that was coming. And this other lady who was Mom's friend would call me a lot and give me the phone and say, your mom's very upset right now. And this was a morning call that I got earlier in the morning, and Mom had woken up. She had no idea where she was. She didn't know her own name. She didn't know anything, and she was terrified. It was just, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing here? What is happening to me? And this lady called me and said, your mom's really scared right now. Can you talk to her? And I got on the phone, and she had no idea what her name was. And I said, well, your name is Bobby. And she answered and said, well, okay, if you say so, which I thought was so cute. If you say so. And then on her door, she had a metal door to her room. She had magnets and pictures, probably more than 100 pictures of all the grandkids, her with her friends. I'm trying to think, postcards that people had sent her when they traveled, just tons of pictures. And she was standing there by that door, she must have been, because she said, who are all these people in these pictures? I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know where I am. And I said, well, every one of the people in those pictures loves you. And then she said, do you love me? Which just got me. It got me. And I said, of course, Mom, I love you very much. And then she said, I'm your mom?
Ugh.
And she said, I didn't know that. And I just, I was trying to keep it together on the phone. And I managed to get her on the phone settled down. And I always pointed out in her apartment the picture of her dad, because she never forgot who her dad was. She still has that photo now in memory care. And it's a grounding thing for her. That's my daddy. She always remembers that. So I had her turn around and look at that picture of her dad. And when she saw that, and she realized, well, I must live here. And then, of course, I put my hair up in a pony and probably powdered my nose and drew my eyebrows on, and I drove right over there and spent some time with her. Because I couldn't even imagine waking up and having no idea even who I was and where I was. So that's the one I remember the most, just because it was just so heartbreaking to just be on the phone with her and thinking to myself, well, of course she knows I'm her daughter. They probably said on the phone, let's call your daughter. And she just had no idea who I was.
And no idea that she had daughters.
Yeah, no idea who any of those people were looking at her from those pictures. Just no recollection of anything. That's one of the things I'm sad about in her memory care, is those photos. Though I wish we could have found a way to put all those up in her room.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, she's got some, but not nearly as many as she used to have.
Yeah.
And that really reminded her and helped. Those were some of her triggers for her memory. And she doesn't have those anymore. But I'm glad she still has that picture of her father.
Yeah.
Because I agree. That is her grounding picture.
Yep.
It's a picture of her dad.
Yeah. What
would your grounding picture be?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's hard to think about, isn't it? What would it be?
Oh, wow. I'm looking around right now.
It's got to be a picture that's been with you for a long time. Would always remind you of who you are or where you come from.
Yeah, the one that I have had, and I always have it up, is, and I never met her personally, but Great-Grandma Bertha.
Mm-hmm.
That picture of her that was taken and then edited and colored in because it was taken so long ago, and Grandpa had it, and then somehow it ended up with me. And I always have that. I mean, right now, I'm looking at it right now. It's always near my computer in my office. It's always there. I would probably say that one. What about you?
That one's a tough one for me too, just because I've gone through so many phases of my life.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one, it would probably be the family photo that we took when we had first moved to Shoto and Mom and Dad had gotten divorced.
Oh, yeah.
I can't stand my hair in that picture because Mom had this thing about I don't know, she said my hair was weird because one side feathered back and the other side curled forward. So she had curled one side of my hair back, but it actually was flipping up. And then the other one was going back, and you and I are both sitting at her feet. I mean, I think that would be a grounding picture for me, only because I've had that for many years, and it just kind of reminds me of where I come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would certainly be mine, and it would help me to remember those horrible hair days when Mom used to curl my hair.
Well, and that was the first picture that we had. I don't know if you mentioned it when you said that was the very first family photo we ever had taken, and it was the first one we had taken without Dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it was a difficult time for her, but at the same time, I mean, that picture, I mean, that hung in our house for years, when we all lived together. We all have a copy of it.
Yep.
And it's just, that would be something that would bring me back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good little representation of our family for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was just us three.
Yep. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our podcast. We're releasing episodes every 2 weeks, so look for our next one to be out soon. In the meantime, we'd love for you to share your Alzheimer's or dementia story with us. You can call our phone line at 850-254-9595 and leave a voicemail. You have about 4 minutes to record, so if you need more time, just call back and keep going. You can also record a voice memo on your phone or computer and email it to us at whentheyforgetpodcast@gmail.com. And if you don't want to record your story, you can email it to us and we'll read it on the show. If you need some inspiration, we have a lot of story topic ideas and prompts on our website. We hope this podcast brings you some peace and love, and please reach out to us on social media or on our website. When they forget, we remember. So please keep calling in and sharing your stories. Thanks for listening.